All right, here we go. Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Showtime TV. I'm your host, Omar Rashada. March is Women's History Month, and I have three distinguished women here this evening. Oh, man, I'm so nervous right now. I got three big shots. They all women in leadership. I have Denice Rodrigues, Kimberly Stock, and Elizabeth Lockman. Ladies, good evening, and thank you for being a guest on the show.
Hi.
Hi, Omar.
All right,
Hi.
we'll start off with Elizabeth. We want to call Elizabeth or Tizzy. Which one should I say?
You can call me Tizzy. That
Okay,
works.
okay. We'll start off with Senator Tizzy. Let me put that senator in there. And you can give a brief history of your educational background and what is it that you currently do?
Sure, I'll try to be quick. So you can always pull out the hook if I go on too long. But yeah, so my name is Elizabeth Lockman. I go by Tizzy, and I'm a state senator now, but I grew up here in the city of Wilmington. I went to Red Clay schools, Lewis HB, and AI High School. And then I went and did my undergrad at New York University. I actually studied film and linguistics, so it's in communications like you, Omar. And, and then I went a little later on, after working in the communications field for about a decade, I went back for a graduate degree at University of Delaware in public policy. And I was really inspired by my daughter, I'd have to say, who's a senior in high school now, but I got really involved at her elementary school. She went to Highlands Elementary here in Trolley Square. And I was a PTA mom. I became the PTA president, and I got really excited about education policy and making changes in our public education system for the better for all kids. But of course, particular soft spot in my heart for the children of Wilmington. And so I went back to graduate school at University of Delaware to learn more about that. And it kind of snowballed from there. I spent some time as an organizer at Christina Cultural Arts Center, working with parents to be advocates for their children's education, and got involved in a lot of more political types of things around education policy reform. And ultimately, in 2018, I ran for state senate in the 3rd district where I live. And that's Wilmington, downtown, Riverfront, East Side, most of the West Side. And I won my election. So I started serving as a state senator in January of 2019. I'm about halfway through my term. We just started the 2nd General Assembly that I've been in. It's the 151st for Delaware, and I was elected this year to be the Senate Majority Whip. So that basically means, like, if you think about the caucuses in the chambers, the House and the Senate, we've got the Republicans and the Democrats. If you think about them as like sports teams, you have captains for those sports teams. Which is really like our majority leader. So I'm kind of like the vice or the co-captain as the whip there. And so I get to serve Delaware by helping to pass laws and advocate for good policy for Delawareans. So that's the short version.
All right, that is awesome. Okay, Kimberly.
Oh gosh, I don't think I can follow that, but all right. So just a little bit about me and what I'm doing now. So for me, so people always ask me where I'm from. Well, I was actually born in Korea. And then when I was about 2 years old, then I was actually adopted by the Stocks in Nebraska. So I grew up in Nebraska. And as you can imagine, that was not an easy thing to be one of the only Asian girls in a very, very white environment. But as I got a little bit older, I kind of got into kind of a little bit more touch with kind of my heritage, got connected more with what that meant to really be Korean. And I really feel like that's kind of an important journey that everybody has to go on. And I think especially people of color, I think that we are always kind of on that kind of unique journey, and being able to kind of go through different parts of our life and in our different identities, really. And then I got my undergraduate degree from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in secondary education, English. And the reason why I became an English teacher is actually because an English teacher that I admired, who was bringing in literature that was relevant, and she taught us in a way, she treated us like adults. I think that she actually probably said some things that teachers can't say now, but that was a different time. I mean, really. But gosh, I learned about that connection, and I had a lot of great teachers, despite how difficult it was growing up. So I became an English teacher because my English teacher told me to be an English teacher, and I also got certification in English speech and theater. So I guess we kind of all have that communications background and speech and theater too. And I guess theater, that's how I met Omar, because I was in one of his plays a long time ago. And so that's kind of a fun thing. And then I was taught, and then off and on, I was involved in education, whether I worked in higher ed, and then before I had my second daughter, then I got my master's at University of Pennsylvania in educational leadership, with an endorsement to become an administrator. And then I actually, of course, took a couple of years off because my kids were pretty little at that point, but I was still really involved in their education, PTAs, and tutoring lots, and just trying to keep up. And then I kind of re-entered the work field again, taught at Ursuline, and then I was able to be the education manager at the Claymont Community Center, where I was able to really kind of seek out partnerships with nonprofits, as well as the Christina School District, to really bring in a relevant adult education program for the Claymont area, which was very, very much needed, so that people could, take ESL classes, and that was already existent, but I really grew that. I actually grew that by 100%, and also allowed for adults to get their GED, or if they had enough credits and it made sense for them to actually just get their high school diploma. So that was really important. And then some things kind of changed in our life as a family, and then I ended up going back into the classroom to McCain High School, where I was an English and English learner teacher, and that's where I've been ever since. And along the way, I got my master's in ESL at the University of Delaware. And this past year, I was awarded, I guess, if you will, the 2021 Delaware Teacher of the Year. So it's been really quite a year, really quite a year to be a teacher in general, and then to be able to advocate for our incredible teachers across the state, and then our students too. It's just been really amazing. And then I'm also running for the Brandywine School District School Board too. So that's just a little bit about me too.
Okay, so you got a full plate. That's it.
I don't know. Yes, I do. I like to be busy.
All right, Denice Rodrigues, tell us about yourself.
So most definitely, I'm very honored to be on this panel with these beautiful ladies. They have a very important position within our community, and it's an honor, definitely. So again, my name is Denice Rodrigues. I am born and bred in Delaware. My parents came here when they were very young. So when we were growing up, we actually grew up in Harmony Hills in Newark, and we went to schools, all white schools, and it was a struggle. I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. We then moved from Newark into Wilmington when my dad bought corner stores. So we kind of got immersed into a whole different culture. And from there, we lived in Puerto Rico for about a year. So I kind of hopped around a little bit in my early years, but I've lived my whole life in Delaware for the most part. I am a community service worker, first, foremost. I run a drop-in center for homeless people that deal with mental illness and homelessness. And that's my passion, and it's always been a passion. So that's pretty much what I do on my day-to-day. Prior to that, I worked in the prison system for a lot of years. I worked at Gander Hill. I worked at Chester State Prison. And I started seeing kind of a trend of, I used to work in drug and alcohol programs, and I would see the individuals do very well, graduate, and then within a couple of months, return back to prison. And I couldn't understand why. I started to get kind of discouraged. When I first started, I thought I could save everybody in the prison system. I thought I could just, go in there with my heart and my soul, and I was going to save everybody. I got very discouraged, but then I learned that it wasn't necessarily what was going on in the prison. It was what was happening after they returned back into society, the lack of services. And that's a big impact on anybody that has done, you know, prison time. They get back out, they have to see the probation officer, they have to get a job, they have to pay fines, they have to you know, watch their children, or they, you know, it's a lot to do. They have to go see a task worker. So I kind of got to see a different view on, you know, why the recidivism rate is so high in our state. Um, you know, drugs is a very, very sore point with me. I have lost family members to heroin addiction. So, you know, it's not uncommon to see me up in Kensington with a whole group of other community workers doing outreach, trying to reach people, trying to give people hope. Um, my biggest accomplishment is I'm a mom. I've raised my kids as a single mother. I have three sons, but if anybody knows me, and I'm sure Omar knows, I have about 14 children that I've raised. I still have a few more that are living in my household. I have a couple grandkids, and that, no matter what I went through in life, no matter the obstacles that I went through, I was always there with my children. I was always a firm believer, family first. And I'm still a firm believer of family first. So that's like my biggest accomplishment. And I'm part of the Journey Church as well. And being a part of that church, I'm able to be a part of a team called Code Red. And we actually do international missions, and we'll be going to Puerto Rico and El Salvador in the next few months, which I'm very excited about.
I want to go back for Kimberly just for a moment. Kimberly, I want to know how would you get from Nebraska to Wilmington, Delaware?
Oh, how did I end up here? Well, my current husband, he got a job actually in Philadelphia, and yeah, and then when he was, you know, thinking about, you know, moving, and they had suggested that we actually look at Wilmington because it was significantly less expensive. And you know, of course, we didn't know very much about Delaware, but that was actually in 2003, and we just love Delaware, so we've kind of stayed. So we just kind of found our home.
Right. You know, so Denice used the word passion. In order for you ladies to do what you have to do, you have to have an extraordinary amount of passion. I want to ask each three of you, all three of you, Elizabeth, Tizzy, with the politics. Man, sometimes people hit politicians hard, or they make false promises. All they want to do is go in there in office. When they get in office, they don't do anything. It's a very hard job because you got people coming at you from all different angles. So I want you to talk a little bit about your passion in terms of why you decided to be a politician, political figure, whatever term you want to use. Kimberly, you have a passion for helping children. I mean, not only are you dealing with children, but you're also dealing with their parents and their guardians. You're dealing with behavior issues, you're dealing with issues that may encounter at home before they get to school. I mean, it's a challenge to work with students from elementary to junior high and high school as well. And you taught at Ursuline, you taught at, you're currently at McKean. Denice, when you talk about mental illness and substance abuse, there's a stigma. People have negative thoughts and feelings about mental health and substance abusers. There are family members where they may have burned bridges and they're all alone, they have no family, and then the peer recovery center may be on their only family, their only support system. So if each of you ladies can talk about your passion and doing what you love to do, we'll start off with Tizzy.
Thank you, Omar. What a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think that is a great connecting thread for the three of us. You can really hear our passion for our work and what motivates us, and so much of it is just about caring about people and people who struggle in one way or another. And so, yeah, getting into politics was a big decision. The way you describe it is, you know, it's fairly accurate. I mean, you put yourself out there to be in a public facing position, which means that you're going to potentially, you know, be under fire if you make a decision that, you know, a chunk of people don't like, and you're sort of on the line to help folks with a whole host of needs, and it can be overwhelming at times. But what drove me to make the difficult choice to do this was just that conviction that I could make a difference. And I was very, very passionate about education reform, you know, seeing the experience that I had had, seeing the experience my daughter had had, and some of the students that I worked with when I was doing youth work, when I was a media producer. And, you know, the experience that I had as a woman of color trying to advocate for change was often a really frustrating one. I was really passionate about making this change, but sometimes it just felt like hitting a brick wall. And had an experience as vice chair of the Wilmington Education Improvement Commission, and we had this whole package of reforms, and we got so close, but we didn't quite make it, and you know, we failed. And for me, somehow that experience of frustration made me realize that, you know, well, if I can be one of those elected officials making those decisions, I can make different decisions. And the fact that folks who we put ourselves out there, it's a hard job, but we're in a position to create a better context for people to live healthy and happy and productive lives. And that's such a huge opportunity. And for education, so much, you know, happens at the state level of creating that context so that school boards and school districts can do what they know best to do. So I think, you know, the passion for the change outweighed my fears about putting myself out there or being in the, you know, the difficulty of the political sphere. And, you know, I feel really validated by that. You know, I worked for a while as an organizer with folks in vulnerable communities who wanted to make change. And we just learned over and over again how hard it can be to be heard. And I think for me, there was a real revelation there, which was like, well, I can be the person who listens. I can be the person who takes all of these concerns seriously and cares and tries to make a difference. And that just seemed like, you know, that could be a really important role to play and make it all worthwhile. And I think, you know, it is Women's History Month. I think as women, we do care in a particular way. I was sitting down last night with the National Coalition for 100 Black Women, which is an amazing organization. And we talked about that I think there's something about these experiences that we've all described, that we've had personally, that we carry with us, so that even when we are, you know, in a more stable position in our own lives, we take very seriously that opportunity to advocate for folks who can't advocate for themselves. And the ability to do that and passion for that drives me and makes all that politics stuff just, you know, it's just a side effect. So it's all good.
All right, awesome. Okay, Kimberly?
Yeah, gosh, I have to say that the one thing that really drives me as a teacher and just something that I'm passionate about is honestly just like equity and our students. And I mean, honestly, let me tell you something about our students and about our kids. They are so on the money. They are so much better. The reason why I use my pronouns is because of my students. And I understand that when I use that and when I make that a regular thing, because I didn't grow up that way, it's something that I had to learn from younger people. It's something I had to learn from my daughters and from my students. And what I can see is that when I do that, I can create, I can signal to my students that I'm a safe person. I may not understand exactly everything that they go through because I'm a different human with different experiences, but because I've experienced so much my life of being, you know, othered, that I understand what that feels like. And so I use a lot of that compassion and empathy, and students will notice that. And the thing about it is that, you know, I just really feel like, you know, adults get involved and we say, all right, we got to do this and we have to do that. But the reality is that I really think if we put more of our students and just say to them, what do you think we should do here? They'll tell you, and they'll gladly tell you. And you know, I think as you know, one piece of evidence, and just as one piece of evidence, is if you were following some of the Instagram stories and some of the Instagram pages, and it was where students were sharing stories, or former students were sharing stories about different times that they had felt discriminated against or had witnessed that in schools. And in schools where adults want to say, well, this doesn't happen and we're not doing that. And the reality is that we all are. And but we need our students to really kind of show us what to do, because they're so much better. They didn't grow up with these ridiculous stereotypes and just a, you know, honestly, a toxic way of thinking. And they're just a lot better than us. And so that's that's what keeps me going, to be honest.
Right. Denice.
So we talked a little bit about the passion and why I do what I do. And you had mentioned something that to me really stuck out. And you talked about the stigma, you know, with mental health and addiction. Um, I deal with that a lot, and I feel as though that I am here to be a voice for those individuals who cannot speak for themselves. So just a little bit about the drop-in center. We on a daily basis have individuals that will drop into the drop-in center who are homeless, dealing with addiction and mental illness. And when they come to the center, we don't ask questions. We don't care where they came from or who they are. They're just individuals that need somebody that's going to, you know, be there for them, listen to them, ask them, you know, the kinds of questions that we ask them are, you know, what can I do for you? What do you need? Can I get you a cup of coffee? Are you hungry? I don't need to know, you know, anything that they don't want me to know. I'm there for them, you know, as a peer specialist, I'm there to listen. But I would like to know that if my son or daughter was out in the streets battling addiction or mental health issues, I would like to know that they can show up at a place like the drop-in center and be treated as a family member. And Omar knows, he comes in there all the time. So he knows how the environment is there. And, you know, we make sure that they have the things that they need. If they need a shower, if they need a change of clothes, we don't have to ask questions. If you want to talk, we're here to listen, but no judgment. We don't have no judgment. And a lot of people don't understand that mental illness is not something that just happens to, you know, you see it on TV, or it might be the people down the street. It's probably in your family. And a lot of the times it's not even diagnosed. A lot of people don't realize I suffer from mental illness. I dealt with depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety for a long time, but I maintain a job. I maintain a family life. You know, I can still function, but not everybody has that, you know, blessing. And I just want to know that I can be an advocate for those individuals. And when they come in, a lot of times they don't even know what services are available for them. And they can come in and we can direct them to the services. But I think that's what's my driving force, is being able to speak for them, being able to be an advocate. I have developed a really good relationship with the police officers that come around the area, because a lot of times they may come in looking for one of my clients, and they don't even know that drop-in center exists. And so I think it's important that people in the community are aware of what it is that we do there.
Right. You know, if you look at the history, particularly in this country, because I'm from America, but you know, women in the past, maybe during the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they were homemakers. You know, they didn't have equal pay, they didn't have equal voting rights. You know, they had to fight hard for what they got. And you had a movement called the feminist movement, which fought for the rights of females. And one of the questions I want to ask you ladies that I didn't get to ask in the two previous segments with other guests is, what are your thoughts on the feminist movement? We start off with, who wants to start off? Oh, this is
I can start. That's fine. Yeah, definitely. Well, I tell you what, if you ask a group of strong and empowered women what we think about being strong and empowered and equal rights, I think that, I mean, I'm going to just speak for myself, and I'm going to say that as a mother, as a teacher, this is what I want to see with my students. This is what I want to see with my daughters. I want to see women who know that they have a voice, that they know that they have choices. There's a lot of difficulty that come with those choices. I'm not going to lie. There are no easy choices as women. There just are not. Every path you take is a difficult one. Whether that's because that's who we are as women, and that we have high expectations for ourselves, or whether that is also a mixture of what perhaps the message that society is still putting us under. It's hard to know what is, you know, completely responsible for that. But women, I think, as we've seen, are capable of doing honestly whatever they want. And when we have women in positions of making decisions, everything is better for everybody. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I'm a feminist. I don't have any shame in saying I'm a feminist. I think the feminist movement, has done a lot of good, and and gets unfairly maligned sometimes. And I think it's exactly what Kim described. We are equals to men. It doesn't mean we're the same as men necessarily, but I think not only are we equals, in a way that allows for difference. We're all individuals. There's diversity among women. And I think something that's been really interesting to see, participating in like the women's marches that we've seen over the past several years, is how that conversation has evolved. I mean, I think we're really lucky right now to be on a panel of 3 women of color and a diverse set of women of color, which I think is really cool. We don't always get the fullness of this diversity, and that we talk so much now, among feminists about how important it is to recognize that diversity and difference and all the different choices we can make. Do you want to be, can you be a stay-at-home mom? And you may not even have that opportunity. If you can, then you have to make a choice. You want to do it? Do you not want to do it? And sort of learning how we can be affirming and value all that difference that women bring to the table, as opposed to sort of judging. It's not about, to me, feminism isn't about saying there's some specific box that all women are supposed to fit in, that that we're supposed to be like men or anything like that. It's just purely that we are human beings who are equal to other human beings, regardless of our gender identity, and all of these other things. And so looking at it that way, I find it very easy to say that I'm a feminist and proud to be one.
Absolutely. For me, I can honestly say I'm definitely proud to be a feminist, and a lot of people get that misconstrued. I've heard men say, oh, as a feminist, you act more like a man, and there's nothing manly about me. I enjoy getting my nails done, and I enjoy being a woman, but I also enjoy having a voice, and I have a backbone, and I exert it when I need to. I've worked like I said, in the prison system, and when I worked at the prison system, I worked around mostly males, so it was hard, but I definitely never had a problem of, saying how I felt or voicing my opinion. Now, growing up, it was a little bit different, especially within our culture. It was not uncommon to see, your father kind of ruled the household, and your mom was kind of more quiet. When I was younger, I saw that, but as years went on, I kind of saw my mom breaking out of that. And so I'm glad that, I grew up with both, I got to see both sides, and I'm proud to be a feminist. I'm proud to have a voice. And I encourage young women today, like, you need to know that you do have a voice, and it's there for a reason. So you need to use it.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about movements, one of the movements I was watching on YouTube and on the news right now, the biggest thing that's going on is the attack on the Asian community. And I wanted to give you ladies the opportunity to chime in. Do you have any thoughts on what's going on involving the attack on the Asian community? So I see all 3 of you shaking your head. So let's say, Tizzy, you want to go first?
Well, I would love to have Kim speak a little bit to it as an Asian woman, honestly, because I know, we all feel this very viscerally, but.
Oh, okay, sure.
Sorry.
Omar, thank you, Tizzy, and thank you, Omar, for asking this. And I've now spoken about this a couple times, and I think I can actually get through this without crying. I really do, because the first time I wept, right. And yeah, I think that as an Asian woman, and I think especially I think that this is not necessarily unique to Asians, but I think that one of the things that's happened with Asian Americans is that, first of all, Asian Americans are extraordinarily diverse. You have Southeast Asians, you have Indian Americans, you have Koreans, you have Japanese. Those are a lot of different languages and a lot of different cultures, and to kind of lump everybody together actually gives a false narrative to what is actually happening to a lot of Asian Americans, that not everybody is a model minority. And the reality is that the model minority is a myth. It was a creation in order to pit different people of color against each other, to be completely honest. And I think as somebody who kind of was fed this lie and this narrative that because you were Asian, that somehow what you were experiencing, it didn't matter. It was dangerous. And I knew that it was wrong, because I knew that my experience, it was real, and the racism that I have felt. And it's one of those things where I think, especially as the hypersexualization of Asian women, I think we can see the effect of that a man who was having a bad day, in order to basically solve his sexual addiction, he needed to go after Asian women as the cause of his sexual addiction. And then for somebody as a spokesperson to call that a bad day, that is quite a different narrative. And it's even, unfortunately, what happened in Boulder yesterday is sickening and completely wrong.
Yeah.
And I've already noticed that the narrative and how that's described is already different. And it is really, it's like for several years we were the scapegoats of what has happened. And I remember this time last year, saying to people, please, don't follow our president. Please don't call it the China virus or the Kung flu or whatever. I said, to be honest, perpetuating that narrative is actually putting myself and my family in danger. And to get the response from people of, not everybody, but to get the response from some people of, I'm not being racist, this is not racist. I think what happened is the result of not being racist. And it's so much, it's a culmination of a history of discrimination and racism against Asian Americans. It is really, I don't even know what the words are, because it's tragic, and yet part of our American history, unfortunately.
I mean, as for me, I just think it's disheartening, all the way around. And it was ironic. I had a client that came in. She's been living on the streets, and she's of Asian descent, and she came in one day upset, and she said that she found an old newspaper, not really old, but probably a day or so old, and she read the article, and it was the first time she was hearing of the incident, and she was just sitting there crying, and she was like, I kind of feel better when I don't know anything and I'm clueless to what's going on in the world. Now I'm like, hearing this, and she was just so upset, and there was just really nothing you can do to comfort her, and except for just listen to her and be there. But it is very disheartening.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's not so much more to say about that, but I mean, I think it just shows that in this country, and I know there's issues all over the world, but we do have this combination of illnesses that we're suffering, racism being really paramount among them. And I think it's a terrible thing that it's been happening, that we sort of have this negativity that's brewed, particularly around the virus, that's enabled that to really come to the top in the way that it has. But I hope that we can see, as people of color, that everyone who falls into these non-dominant categories, as we might say, who's not white, male, Christian, heterosexual, is at risk at times, and certainly suffering from discrimination, and that sometimes I think we get really bound up in pitting all these minority groups against each other, and it's so counterproductive to progress. And so I think this really gives us an opportunity to realize that, yes, our experience of discrimination may be different, but we're experiencing them, and none of them are okay, and we have to stand in solidarity against them. And so there's that aspect. I think there's mental health is obviously, plays a part in there. Someone having a bad day and channeling it through these toxic emotions that have been cultivated in them is not a healthy person. And so we're missing the boat somewhere on that too, as a nation. And then, I am a politician and I'm working on some policies. So there's some things that are top of mind for me. I think it also speaks to the issue that we have of, firearms falling into the wrong hands, whether it's a criminal or someone who's unwell to have that. And that's something that we're really working on. I have a bill that's actually going to be filed this week, addressing that. And I think that these are all different aspects of a problem, which leads us repeatedly into situations where, unfortunately, someone can go out and take their racism and their mental illness and the firearm that they have and cause an impossible tragedy over and over again, and to see it again yesterday. So it's tragic on a lot of fronts.
Right. When I look at a woman who's very successful, which includes my mother and grandmother and women like you three, one of the things that I learned from the outfit is the power of flexibility. Women raising their children, taking care of their parents, involved with different organizations, involved with leadership position. After school activities programs, soccer moms, basketball moms, football moms, organizational work. I mean, women just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. How are you eight ladies able to handle the flexibility in your lives? I mean, because you're here, there, over there, across the street, around the corner. You're just doing everything that just makes sense. Well, a lot of women, they're very flexible, and some of these women, a lot of these women are single mothers as well, doing all this work. I mean, they're better than themselves. Like I said, they're in school, they're working, taking care of their children, they're involved in different organizations. I mean, that's a lot for one person, and they just keep going and going and going and going. Ladies, somebody talk to me about it.
Well, I think for me, it was having a support system. I take pride again in being able to raise my children, and I've also been instrumental in raising other children that were not my children. But I think that the important thing was to have a support system. So when I was tired, I had someone that I could rely on. So my mom was the type of mom, if I wanted to go to a club, she was not babysitting. If I went to a doctor's appointment or something productive, then she made babysit. And I support my mom wholeheartedly. I appreciate her for all that. She was there when I needed her, but she also taught me to take care of my children and to be a strong mom. And I'm proud, to be able to do that. But it's learning when to pull back, when you're putting too much on your plate, because if you don't take care of you, nobody else is going to do that. So I think that was the important thing for me, was to know when to pull back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's sort of funny to think about. I mean, I think for me, it was the support system too. I have two older sisters. I have a mother, I have a stepmother, I've got my mom friends, and I don't know how I would have survived raising my daughter. I'm recently married, but I raised my daughter as a single mom, and I don't know how I would have done it without all of them. And quite frankly, I think, if I'm honest, like, joining the PTA was probably my version of a social life when I had an elementary school age child. So sometimes it's sort of meeting all your needs. It's like, okay, how can I justify going to this thing and time away, not completely dedicated to my child? It better be purposeful. It better be making the world better for her. So I think for me, I sort of tripped on it by doing these types of things because they seemed important for my daughter and for the world. And that was my way to have a social space for myself. But I've definitely learned, in the last couple of years, with just the workload of being a legislator, that you absolutely, as Denice said, you've got to take time out for yourself. You've got to do the little self-care things that feel frivolous, get your nails done, like you said, Denice. And all that kind of stuff. And I saw a quote yesterday, I think it was from one of the Olsen twins or something, that, it's really important. I do read a little bit of, whatever the silly things that come up on Facebook, but the power of no, that it's really important. We can say that as women, for a lot of different reasons. No means no, and it's the end of a sentence, and that's it. You really do learn how to balance and how to target your energies. And we have a lot of energy, the three of us, and most women do. We know how to multitask. We want to save the world. We're out there doing it. And my mom always says, sometimes you don't know until down the road, some years later, you look back and think, how did I do that? But in the moment, you're doing what needs to be done.
Yeah, those are all really good points, and I agree that I think that what I do it because I love it, and I mean I've loved this year meeting new people, talking to people, and just learning about who they are, and obviously this time with the four of us is so special, and it's so awesome, and it recharges me, and honestly when I come off of this, I'll unplug for a little bit, or or think about and spend some time with my family, and the other thing is that I am lucky enough to have the support system of my family and of my husband, because you know what they say, that behind every good woman is a good man. So or another good woman, that's right, or another good woman. But my husband in this case, he has taken my daughter to her cheer practice so that I could do this, and so it really is a give and take, and I think that those things are really important. So what I do, I have a lot of support.
When we talk about women in leadership, there's always been questions as in terms of whether a man is able to accept being under a woman. But I also want to know, is it difficult for a woman to be under another woman? The only reason I ask that, because I've been on jobs. Well, I heard women say, I'd rather work with a man than another woman. I worked on jobs where I seen there was conflict between the two women, woman supervisor and her subordinate. So, based on you three experiences, are women able to accept having a woman as a supervisor? I mean, let alone a man.
I'll go first. In my situations, some of my best bosses are women. My direct supervisor at school is a woman. And when I think about the people who've inspired me, my boss at the Claymont Community Center was a woman. And I don't know if that's unique because I'm in education, but I don't think so. I think I've also had some male bosses too. And I really think it's about the person and making that connection, and finding what it is that the two of you have in common, whether it's a woman or whether it's a man, and how it is that you can relate to that person, and have common goals, and hopefully if you're at work, hopefully that mission and those values can be similar. And I think that's what makes a great boss. I mean, someone who's willing to listen to you, and someone who is willing to kind of understand what your needs are, and is willing to go to bat for you, and is willing to support you in those, whether that be a man or a woman.
Anyone else want to chime in?
For me, I really have never had an issue working with male or female. I'm open to whatever. As a female supervisor, I have encountered every now and then some, I will just say some obstacles, but I am the supervisor that I'm hands-on. I don't sit in my office all day. I work with the clients all day. I am just in the mix, and that's how I enjoy it. I work very closely with my staff, so we have a pretty good team, and I really haven't had too many issues as far as working with men or women.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't know if I sought it out, but I think in my early work, I worked for small businesses and nonprofits where women were in the leadership roles. And that was a wonderful experience for me as a young single mom, to be able to have that understanding. They were mothers, and they ran a very motherly, sort of businesses. And so it allowed me the flexibility and that space that I needed. And I think I ascribed that to them being women. And I know that was part of it. But now that I work in a more male-dominated workspace, I have to agree that it's the person. I mean, I see those same values in some of my male supervisors, and that's wonderful to see. So I think it really, comes more down to that value proposition of how that person, wants to be as a manager, as a supervisor. And so You know, it really depends, but I've worked for wonderful women. I've worked for wonderful men, and you know, I'm sure we've all had the reverse experience, and it's not gendered.
All right. Sissy, I want to stay with you. What exactly is your role and responsibility of being a state senator? Because, you know, during election times, you got state rep, you got senates, this senator. I mean, it's so many positions, and I don't know what they do. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, I pretty much know what the mayor do. I know what city council people do.
Right.
But, you know, you got the state rep, you got the state senator. I mean, you got this. I mean, you got
County
governor.
level, federal level, yeah, the whole shebang.
You got so many positions now. So what exactly is the job responsibilities of a state senator?
I'll try to break it down a little bit. So as you kind of touched on, you know, on every level, just like we're probably the most familiar with the federal level, right? We've got the executive branch and we've got the legislative branch. So you've got sort of like your CEO kind of thing, and that's your mayor, your county executive, your governor, your president. And then you've got your legislative side, which is, you know, whatever that body is that kind of counterbalances a separate equal body making laws and things like that. So that would be like city council, county council, Congress in DC. And so the state legislature is our legislative body on the state level. And we've got the two chambers, the House and the Senate. People definitely get confused and ask us if we're going to DC and the Senate because we have sort of the same name, but no, we're the state senators. So I represent a district within Delaware and serve all of Delaware and go to Dover to do that. And along with our state representatives as a state senator, we represent our constituents. You know, we listen to our constituents. We work hard to understand what they want, what they're challenged by, both in terms of just sort of things they're facing day to day on the ground, and also, you know, that all that policy that sets the context. So in our role as legislators, you know, we're writing laws and voting on laws that are going to impact a whole host of things. All the things that you see state agencies working on, we are passing bills related to. It could be health, could be criminal justice, could certainly education and elections and all these different types of things. So we really interface a lot with the state agencies. We work with the governor, and we probably, one of the most important things we have to do is we pass the budget. So the tax bill that you're paying creates that state budget that we have, and we as legislators come together to work with the governor and decide how to spend that money. So we're doing the state level lawmaking and budget setting just the way our federal counterparts are doing for the whole nation on our behalf as a state.
Now, when you ran, you know, there are many political candidates who run 3, 4, 5 times and they finally win. You ran for your very first time and you won successfully. What was that feeling like?
That's crazy, because I had been told that statistic that like 90% of first-time candidates don't win. So I was very fortunate to be in that 10%, and that was because I had an amazing team of friends and volunteers who staffed my campaign and helped me make it a great one. And you know, we all worked really hard and talked to thousands of people about what we wanted to do. So, you know, when you're doing it and Kim's in the midst of a campaign experience right now, you've got to believe in yourself and you've got to believe you're going to win. But it was scary. I'll tell you, that moment when the results were rolling in, you just I sort of crawled into a corner and was like, just tell me when it's over. Tell me when 100% of the vote is in. It felt great. But, you know, for me, and I feel this way in terms of like successes with legislation too. It's like, and then you keep going because it's, you know, I've essentially gone through a really long interview and got the job, and now there's a lot of work to do. So that was pretty quickly. I probably took like a month in a coma, but after that it was straight to work. And it was a wonderful feeling. And I look forward to going back out to the community and letting them know what I've been working on, and hopefully we'll have their vote of confidence to continue. But it's pretty fun.
And you know, I don't live in the 3rd district, but I would imagine that, you know, you and your opponent, Jordan, you're both likable people, both respectable people. So for the residents of the 3rd district, it could have been kind of hard because both of you are likable people. You've done so much in the community. So I know that probably wasn't an easy vote.
No, it's not easy. Primaries are not easy. General elections are not easy. He's a great guy.
Right.
You know, but you put together your campaign and what you think you can do, and you got to believe in yourself. So it wasn't easy, but you know, we're friends, and it's Delaware. Everybody knows each other, so you're always going to be running into a friend at some point.
Right. And then let me ask you this other follow-up question. Kamala Harris is the Vice President of the United States. With her being the first woman of color to be Vice President of the United States, does that give you inspiration and motivation to perhaps be Vice President or President of the United States of America?
I mean, I wouldn't say I have higher aspirations. I came into this job with a very specific idea of what we could do for Delaware, and I think it's going to take some years to get there. So we'll see. I'm as we've talked about, I'm driven by my motivation to accomplish specific things for people, what I think I want to see in the world, and that's in the state legislature for me. If a problem presents itself and I think I'm better suited to do that in another role, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But I do think seeing a woman of color, she's a Black woman, but she's also of Asian descent, you know, with her mother being Southeast Asian, and it's we're South Asian, and you know, it's really exciting. I actually ran a resolution on the floor, sort of praising her for that and the inspiration that it gives to women and women of color to just shoot as high as we can to get done the things that we want to get done. You know, women have been the backbone of society forever and sort of toiled in the background in a support role. And when we step forward, like the way she has and the way we all have in our own ways, it's powerful and it's effective. And she's a great example of that.
Absolutely.
Kimberly, I want to ask you, you're running for Brandywine School District School Board. Part A, why did you decide that you want to run for that position? And part B, what exactly does it mean to be on the Brandywine School Board? What is that position? What is your job, duties, responsibilities?
Oh, yeah. So to answer your first question, I think that because of my experience as the Delaware Teacher of the Year and being able to meet people and being able to advocate for teachers and for our students and for our families, I think that it has allowed me to see that that I maybe perhaps it would be a good idea for a K-12 educator to be on not just the Brandywine School District School Board, but every school board across America. Because the reality is that, you know, with the exception of families, teachers, we know our students best, and we know what challenges it is to enact certain policies or to not enact certain policies. And certainly in this time of the pandemic, I really do admire the way that teachers, that we have stepped up to the plate. And with every decision that was made, I think that we've done a really good job. It's been a really difficult year, and teachers have not been immune to that. I know with my colleagues have lost family members to COVID. And so it's been a really, really difficult year for everybody. And so I guess it's the number one reason, because I just really believe that I could be somebody who could really make schools better, specifically in the Brandywine School District. But what do I think is the role of a school board member? I really think that it is really what I'm already doing is somebody who is a partner to parents and families in the community and to teachers, and most importantly, students. And I really think that I can elevate all of those voices. And I really think that I can be a unifying force with that. And I think that that is the role of a school board member, to be a partner and really more importantly, to be an advocate.
Now I live in the Brandywine School District.
I know you do.
So when do I vote? What's the voting date?
May 11th, Omar. I think you can vote at PS, but I will double check.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. All right, just remind me so I won't forget. I don't want to get out the vote.
Oh, don't worry. I will come. I know where you live, so I'll walk you over.
Oh, okay. I got no choice now. I got no choice. So Denice, you may mention earlier, you and I, we work at the same place of employment, and we were all actually on the same team. You were a career specialist, as you indicated earlier, and then you got promoted to be the supervisor of the Peer Recovery Center. When you got the word that you were hired as the supervisor, what went through your mind? And if you could talk about what's the duties, responsibilities. Go ahead.
Hold on one second, because I have to actually log in on a different device because my computer is getting ready to die.
Oh, okay.
So, can you actually accept my request?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Just go back on.
No, it happens to me all the time.
Well, I have a plan B.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll see me come back. But in the meantime, about Kimberly and
I can answer that question really
Oh,
quickly.
okay, sure, okay.
So I'm sorry, what was the question again?
um, what was the first thing that came to your mind when you were selected
So
to be the peer specialist supervisor?
when
Big shot.
they asked me to apply for the position, I told them no on three occasions. I did not want to be a supervisor. I was content where I was at. And then my boss told me she was going to fire me if I didn't apply.
Okay, so you
I
had no
will
choice.
fire you if you don't apply. She had more faith in me than I had in myself. And her name is Michelle. I love her and I thank her because I love what I'm doing. I love being the director of this drop-in center.
Okay, great. So I want to ask you, ladies, as we close the program out, who are some? I mean, I know your list is probably long, about 3 blocks long, but if you could pick out maybe 1, 2, or 3 females that you come to admire, since this is Women's History Month, or who are some of the women that you admire or influence you in making the woman that you are today? So let's start off with Denice. Denice is frozen. Okay, all right. We'll start. We'll go over Kimberly.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot. One in particular who comes to mind because I just think that she is such a strong advocate in who she is actually Sandra Oh, the actress Sandra Oh. She doesn't just advocate for Koreans and for Asians. She's out there advocating for everybody, and I think that she's amazing. I also have to say that I also admire Maya Angelou. If it wasn't for Maya Angelou, I would not have become an English teacher. And she's just an amazing woman. I was privileged to see her in person. She was very tall in real life, and it was amazing. It was probably one of the most thrilling moments of my life to meet her, to see her in person. So I mean, those are 2 in particular, but there are honestly just so many.
Yeah. Well, since you're not going to let me get away with just saying like my mom and my daughter and every woman that I work with, because they're all amazing in the legislature, and some of my former bosses, Sharon Baker and Ray Jones Avery, I'm going to focus on a historical woman who I've come to be really fascinated by. I highlighted her on my during Black History Month, but her name's Alice Dunbar Nelson. So I just encourage everyone to Google her. There's actually a professor at UD by the name of David Kim who knows tons of amazing things about her because there's a whole collection of her work. But she was a writer. She was an advocate and sort of an activist in her time, and worked at Delaware State University at the time. Obviously, the State College for Colored Students. She's just a fascinating, strong woman of the past, who I hope we get to bring more attention to for her, place in our own history as a state. And I find myself, I never thought I was someone who necessarily was hero oriented, but I find myself really fascinated by all of these women who were pushing the envelope at like the turn of the last century, setting the stage for all the kind of work that we do now, whether, it's education, rights for people of color, and all these types of things, when the bar was a lot higher, it was a lot harder to do what felt like progress. And so I'm just sort of fascinated by people like that, really like her, and love learning about people like Alice Dunbar Nelson.
Awesome. All right, Denice, the question was, who are some of the women that you admire and, kind of help shape you to be the woman that you are today?
There's so many. So first and foremost, my mom. My mom is she is such a role model. She's an amazing woman. She raised 7 children. Yeah, she was just amazing. She worked, she took care of her kids, and she's 84 years old. She's a COVID survivor, and she's doing well. So my whole family kind of got knocked down with COVID, but she was definitely very instrumental in, me being strong throughout the whole process. My sister Beverly, she's definitely my role model. In high school, there was a few teachers that were very instrumental in my life. I quit school in the 12th grade, imagine that. And there was 2 teachers that were instrumental in bringing me back. Well, actually not 2 teachers. One was the principal and one was the guidance counselor. Diane Walken told me that it was unacceptable, that I was not allowed to quit. And Pete Grandel actually went and brought me back to the school. Um, Diane, she knew I was a hothead, and she knew how to handle me, and she knew I had a lot of things to do, and she knew that I had a good heart. I just didn't know how to handle my anger. And she told me, once you get on top of your anger, you're going to be an amazing woman. And I didn't believe her then, but I believe her now. So she was definitely instrumental in my life.
Awesome.
Okay, Denise, we're going to stay with you. I'm going to give you ladies opportunity to give those who are watching opportunity to contact you. Denise, you got the Peer Recovery Center. How can people contact you? What's the address? What's the number?
So I would like to extend a personal invitation to Kim and Elizabeth to come out and see what we do. We do also have a lot of volunteer opportunities. We have a group called Helping Hands that's also from my church. I'm also on top of that group. We make meals on the weekends for our clients. We do outreach in the community. We go all over Wilmington, under bridges, in the woods, wherever there's a tent city. You can find us. So I definitely like to invite you guys to come out and see what it is that we do. We also do artwork there. It's an amazing program. So if anybody's interested, we are located 1902 Maryland Avenue, Wilmington, 19805. And the phone number there is 302-778-9590. And I have to say that throughout this pandemic, we closed our doors for 2 days when the pandemic was at its highest point. And I told the director that that was not acceptable, that we needed to reopen our doors. And he told me if I could find a way to do it safely, then I can open up the doors. And so we're not serving, we normally serve about 30 to 40 people at one time. Now we can only do 5 at a time, utilizing social distancing, but we rotate them out, but we still are able to provide services. Plus we feed people outside. So it's an amazing program. I'm very proud of it. And hopefully you guys will come in and see what we do.
All right, Tizzy. So, being a state senator, so if those who want to watch you, if they have any issues, concerns, they want to contact you, how can they do so?
Sure. And first I want to say, Denice, I'm taking you up on that. That's in the 3rd district. I represent the
Absolutely. Yes, I know this.
Making sure you know
I followed you. So
going to the kids.
Yes, I'm very proud of you too, Senator.
All right, good. So probably the easiest way to find me, Facebook. You can find my official page, my campaign page, my personal page. If you type Tizzy into the search box, it should come up. It's Tizzy. So you'll see those pages there. You could also Google me and find us on the website for the Delaware legislature is legis, Legis, like legislation, .delaware.gov. You go on there and you can see all of the different senators and representatives listed there and find out more information about us. It'll give you the phone number, the email. If you're good at writing this stuff down on the fly, my email address is just elizabeth.lockman, like you see on the screen here, @delaware.gov. And yeah, I'd love to hear from people here, if you're having a problem or a concern, but oftentimes it's things that people want to celebrate. We're happy to hear about that too, of course. And so reach out to me, find me on social media, send me a message, and we'll just keep making things happen.
Okay, Kimberly, so you're running for school board from the Brandywine School Districts. For those who want to support you any kind of way, how can they contact you? Or looking for volunteers? I mean, I don't know.
Yes, definitely. Well, first of all, if you are wanting to contact me as a teacher, as a teacher of the year, I also have social media on Facebook and as well as Twitter. I'm not a very good, tweeter because, I'm just, I don't know, I'm not young enough and I'm not cool enough. But I am on there. You can contact me through either. And of course, you can also contact me through my school email, which is kimberly.stock@redclay.k12.de.us. If you are interested in contacting me in that way as a teacher. If you're interested in finding out more about me as a candidate, then I do actually have a website, kimstockteacher.com. And you can find out my positions, the 6 most important things to me about schools and things that I would like to do to improve the Brandywine School District and those schools to make it better for really everybody. And if you want to email me, it is stock4, FORBSD, as in Brandywine School District, at gmail.com. And you can and I also have social media as well for that too. So whichever way that you want to contact me in whichever role, it really is all about being an educator though. And I just want to say that it's been such a pleasure. Omar, it's always a pleasure with you. Tizzy, such a pleasure to talk to you again. And Denice, oh my gosh, I just loved your vulnerability and your honesty. And I'm definitely going to take you up on that. And I loved the nonprofit world when I worked in it. And I totally miss, I think that's why I honestly think that's why I'm doing this, because I just love being an advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Total pleasure being with you all. You're the best.
All right, ladies, on that note, we're going to end today's program, and thank you all for joining in. Please like, subscribe, and share. Okay, have a blessed and safe week, ladies. Take care. Thank you.
You too. See you, Omar.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.